So that's kind of looking at the schema. Here's kind of the script that I use to populate the database given that schema, right? So just like I did with MySQL, I actually made the ERD first before I started putting data in there. And I would recommend that you do that. I would still recommend that you create an ERD before you start putting data in it, because it will end up saving you time. It'll end up saving you time if you figure out what the schema is first before putting the data in. So starting with the first thing, line number 1, use school Paul Smith. I would recommend starting your scripts, things like this, with saying which database you're using, right? So like with MySQL, we started the script with use Sakila or use school Paul Smith or whatever. So I'm saying what database I'm using. I'm inserting into, actually I'm creating some indexes first. So on the teacher table, you can see I'm saying db.teacher.createIndex. So this is kind of a useful thing, and I think the video touched on this idea of creating indexes is a very important thing in Mongo to make your queries fast, right? But remember, the trade-off is indexes make your queries fast, they make reads fast, they make your writes slower, okay? They make your reads fast, you make your writes slower. That's the trade-off we're pulling. So I've got an index here, and I'm saying the first thing I'm passing is given name 1, family name 1. So I'm saying, what do I want to index? Which columns, which fields do I want to index? So I'm indexing the given name and the family name field together. So I'm basically creating an index for the full name. The 1 represents ascending order. So the given name in ascending order and the family name in ascending order. I'm marking this in the second document. So it says, what am I going to index? The second part here says that I'm going to index this says the options that I'm going to use when I create the index. So the fields and the options. So we're going to say that this is a unique index. So by making this a unique index, I'm saying that no two teachers can have the same given name and last name. Obviously, that's not something that necessarily holds up, but it's often something you need to create, right? Oftentimes you need to create unique constraints effectively. Right? And so we do that by creating indexes. If I didn't want to mark that unique, I would just say unique false. Okay, no big deal. Constraints off. And I'm giving it a name, so the name of this index is the full name index. You see that? So what are you indexing, and what are the options for that index? So similarly, I'm also creating an index for the email in ascending order, so I can quickly find users with that email or sort by email. And I'm also saying that that needs to be unique, right? So I'm creating a unique index both on their full name and a unique index for their email. And you kind of can see how that might work with an application that you're building. You might say, hey, their username has to be unique and their email has to be unique, so that two people can't sign up with the same email twice. Cool? That's one thing to keep in mind, is I usually start with my indexes as I'm building that out. It's also worth noting, though, that's one of the things that doesn't appear on your ERD. Your ERD doesn't tell you what your indexes are. That's something you have to figure out afterward. Okay? One piece of information that isn't clear. Now we insert the teachers. Here I'm saying insert many. I could have just said insert one, but for consistency I went there. So I've got my ID. Notice in here that I've hard-coded the object ID. I've set it to this number. In fact, the way I did that is I inserted it and then copied the ID out of it. The reason I'm specifying the ID here is it means that this script is repeatable. If I run it again, I'll get the same IDs for all my entities. If I don't specify an ID here, it will be random every time I try to insert the teacher. Okay, which means that later on when I want to associate the teacher with a course, that's not necessarily going to work because every time I insert the teacher, they have a new ID, right? So later on when I connect those two, I need those IDs to be predictable. So I need to specify them here, okay? So I've got given name, email, Discord, GitHub. Going down to next would be the course. Notice on the course I'm also adding an index. So I'm saying, here let's create an index for the name and the semester. And again, this is a unique index. So I can't have a course with the same name and semester combination. Like I can have AWD 111 in fall and spring, that's okay, but I can't have two of them in the same semester.
Would it contain just fall and spring, or would it contain a year as well?
It would probably contain a year as well. That would be my expectation. So it'd be fall 2021, fall 2020, etc. I would put both of those things together. So that's kind of makes that happen, right? So that I don't have duplicate courses.
What's the purpose of naming the index?
Naming the index. So name and semester. That makes it so I can have a predictable name. So I know that every time, if I create the index, it'll have a predictable name. It means if I try to create the index again, it'll give me an error saying that that index already exists. If you don't specify a name, it will just pick a new name. It'll just pick a new name and create that index. And before you know it, I've got 3 indexes on name and semester. So that avoids getting duplicate indexes, is one thing there. It also means that explicitly I know what the name of the index is. I know that it's named name semester, because later I might want to, for instance, drop it, right? Or I might want to check that it exists, right? It's hard to check that it exists if you don't know what the name of it is. Cool? So it's kind of a dual purpose there. I would really strongly recommend always naming your indexes. I would really strongly recommend not taking the defaults. Then I'm going to insert courses. This is relatively straightforward. You can see the kind of data. You can see days a week is this array, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You can see, okay, here in teachers, I've got an array. Within there, I've got this object for the teacher. And this is where I needed those IDs to be predictable, because I need this teacher ID here to match with the record that I inserted into the teacher's collection, right? Otherwise those foreign keys don't match up. Those foreign keys and primary keys don't match up if I don't explicitly set the primary keys, okay? Because this relies on, again, this ends in 0CD9, and you'll see that up here as well, right? So that's part of why I'm doing that. Same thing with my other course. So that's our course here. You can see days a week, same kind of thing associated with the teacher again. But we kind of talked about the fact that office hours can be different. So my office hours this semester are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. But if you were to look at my summer class, right, my office hours are different. They were Monday to Thursday, 2:25 to 4 p.m., right? So office hours frequently change from semester to semester, right? Creating the student indexes. So in terms of the student, I am saying, hey, I want to create an index for the given name and family name, and say, hey, their full name has to be unique. Again, if I didn't want to make it unique, I would just say unique false. But it's still valuable to have an index on the name. I can also create an index on email. Mark that as unique. I didn't create this one because I didn't put email addresses in here. That actually making it a unique index prevents me from putting null in for all your emails, because then it's not unique anymore. Does that kind of make sense? So unique index actually kind of inherently makes something basically required. But I didn't want to do that for this example. So I answered some students. I've got your IDs declared for each of those. We've got the given name, we've got the family name. Again, important thing being there is I specifically said what the object IDs are going to be. And then I'm doing some updates. So now that I've kind of got all of those things created, I created the the teachers and the courses and the students. Now I need to actually go back and link some of those things together. I could have actually done that originally in the insert itself, but I did want to show you that frequently you're going to find maybe I need to do updates later. So I actually have updates in the script. So here I'm saying, okay, let's now update the AWD 1000 course. And here at this point, I'm setting the students. So I'm setting the students array here. Now that I know what the object IDs are going to be for each of my students, what my student list is. So I set that. And then I'm doing the same thing for AWD 111. I'm also setting the student list. Okay. So again, I could have set that initially when I insert it. Here I set it afterward to kind of give you that example, because that's usually what's going to happen. Is you'll create one record, kind of base, and then add some of the relationships after you insert it. That's not really. I think if you did that. In terms of the teacher now, I'm kind of doing the same thing where I'm updating it. So I say, hey, go find the teacher with this email address. And here, set their courses. So I've got those two courses are now part of the teacher object. Similarly, I'm going to go through and link up the students to courses. And so I'm going to say, let's go update student table, student collection, and we'll set, okay, everybody's part of AWD 111, fall 2021. But then I need to go update a small list of a subset of students, because I need to say, well, they were part of both my summer course and my fall course, right? And so I make that update. Okay. Could have done that with a push. I'm just doing that with the set for simplicity's sake. Last thing here, I've got my assignments. So I'm again creating an index on there, and when I create this index, this is a little bit different. So notice here, I'm creating this index, course ID 1. You'll notice that dot notation. Everybody see that? Because my underscore ID, remember the ID of the course, is within that course subdocument because it's in there. So oftentimes you'll need to index things that are not just at the root of the document. Oftentimes you'll need index fields that are somewhere down lower. That happens all the time. Okay, and so that's how you do that, is you specify it using that dot notation. So I'm indexing the course ID, and I'm also in there indexing the name of the assignment. And what this allows me to very quickly do, it actually works for two purposes. I can use this index if I'm looking for all the courses by their all the assignments by a course ID. It works for that. It also works if I want to specifically say, here I know the ID of the course plus the name of the assignment. It actually works for both of those kinds of queries. Okay? Otherwise, I could have created a separate index for name and a separate index for course ID. So I'm saying, well, I'm probably never going to be looking in the assignments table if I don't already know the course ID to begin with. Cool? Okay, and I'm also saying in here, again, this needs to be unique because I'm saying within a course, I don't want to have two assignments with the same name. Okay, so that's what the unique constraint says. It's important that I have both of those columns. If I just said, hey, let's index the name and make the name unique, then every year I'd have to change the name of my assignments because they couldn't be the same as the previous semester that ran this course. So I'd have to keep putting a new name in there every time. So that's why I'm actually indexing both of those, the combination of the course and the name of the assignment. Cool? So that combination is important. Again, I'm naming it, so I'm naming it course name. Insert many, that's where I go then and start inserting the data. So I'm inserting an assignment with the name, lab 01, due date, the course that it goes with. And so you can see within the course object, I just have this single ID for the course. And within the grades array, you can see I have for each student, I have a submission date and a grade. Cool? Questions? And I've got another assignment down here, which at the time we hadn't submitted, so I don't have any grades and or submissions for it. All right. Any questions? That kind of help see some ways of kind of designing the database? You kind of see an ERD, you're seeing how I've written my script. Does it give you some feedback, kind of looking at how you did the group exercise maybe? Things that you could maybe do to improve? So one of the things that we're going to get started on in the next lab is you're going to build your own database as well. Right, so for the issue tracker project, you're going to be building your own database. So you'll need to create an ERD, you'll need to create a script.